this morning on a Sunday to take up this session. A very, very happy Ganesh Chaturthi to all of y'all. And I think we have 20 odd participants that have come in today, in spite of it being the Ganesh Chaturthi holiday season. So I appreciate the fact that all of y'all are here and attending this session. I'm actually quite excited about attending this session, about conducting this session, because this is a question that has been asked to me multiple times over the years, right? People have spoken to me. I'm sure most of you all know about Work Better, but we've been around for now 10, 12 years in the market, and we've done like literally thousands of training programs. And this is one question that would come up consistently around perception management, building brand new, image management to a certain extent, and to do a whole session on this is very, very exciting for me. Okay, now before we get started, just to make sure that all of y'all can hear me, if you can hear me clearly, give me a big yes in the chat box. And if you can see the presentation, the first slide says building brand new perception management. If you can see the first slide, give me a big yes. Okay, I think most of y'all, yes, most of y'all can hear me, most of y'all can see me. That's good. Okay, so let's carry on with the session. Yes, so most of y'all that have been around for a while know these rules and regulations, but let me quickly run you through them. For the ease of conducting this session, your cameras and microphones have been disabled. You already typed yes. I will take questions at the end of each and every module and at the end of the class. As most of y'all are aware, we run the class for around 90 minutes is what we run the class for, and then we have a whole 30 to 45 minutes of what we call after class, which is basically we try to answer each and every question that comes on our plate connected to this topic. So that's exactly how this session is going to roll. If you have any questions, please ensure that you put the questions in the Q&A box, right? Do it there. And when I ask you some questions, when I want some input from you, ensure that you put it in the chat box, right? So if I give you an exercise, tell you to give me an answer, that's when you use the chat box. When you have questions, please use the Q&A box, right, which is there. At the end of the session, an assessment link will be shared. Today, there are just 5 questions in the assessment, not much. Participants who score above 70% will get a certificate for attending this session, right? We have a simple test that we conduct because we want to ensure that most of you have been through the content of this workshop and have understood it. So it's a simple test of 5 questions today that you need to answer. Okay, now these are the ground rules. Now let's get to the topic of perception management. Okay, and let's try to first understand what perception means, and then let's try to understand what perception management means, right? So perception is what we think about a particular person, situation, or event, right? That's a good way of looking at what perception means. Perception management is about how someone creates a favorable impression of themselves to their stakeholders. Now, who could these stakeholders be? It could be a prospective or existing employees, your shareholders, consumers, society at large, right? So we're talking about how do you create a positive perception of yourself in the mind of who are important stakeholders to you, right? It could be customers, your colleagues, your boss, it could be just about anyone, right? So how do you go about doing that? And of course, how can you go about, if you do these things right, it will end up building a strong personal brand for you, right? If your perception is good in the eyes of people. Now, what is a personal brand? Just as a follow-up to that, it is how you package yourself professionally, right? The behaviors, the characteristics, the qualities that people associate with your name. That's a very good way of looking at it, right? What's a personal brand? It's how you package yourself professionally, the behaviors, the characteristics, the qualities that people associate with yourself. This is another way, a good way of understanding it. Your personal brand is nothing but the reputation that you have at work, right? And an effective personal branding will differentiate you from your competition and will allow you to build trust with stakeholders. Hello. Can everybody hear me? I'm not sure whether you can hear me. Give me a yes if you can hear me. Okay, thank you very much. Now, okay, so this is something that Jeff Bezos says about it, right? He says your brand is what people say about you when you are not in the room, right? That's a good way of looking at personal brand. Now, why should you build a positive personal brand? Okay, so at the workplace, the reasoning actually behind it is quite simple, right? Although we've used lots of words for it, but it is actually quite simple. Where basically all work that you will do will involve another human being, right? And what do I mean by that? That human being could be your subordinate, your boss, your customer. It could be just about everyone, right? But all work essentially revolves around dealing with other human beings. So if you cannot create a positive perception about yourself in front of those human beings, it becomes very difficult for you to make progress in your career. And most of the people that really end up making progress in their career are people that build a positive personal brand for themselves, right? So why should you build a positive personal brand? Number one thing to keep in mind, and you should really like kind of make a note of this point of saying that all work revolves around dealing with different human beings. So if I cannot create a positive brand in front of these human beings, then it will definitely impact my work, right? Now, a positive personal brand will, of course, it will help you stand out in front of the others, right? That is something that it will do. It will lead to more career opportunities if people look at you in the right light. It'll inspire trust in your stakeholders. Someone is going to be screening you online at all points of time, whether you're looking at a promotion, job opportunities, whether you're an entrepreneur or a freelancer. That is something that's going to happen all the time. And both your online and offline brand can have a huge kind of impact on your career success, right? So these are just some of the reasons why having a positive personal brand becomes very, very important to each one of us. Okay. Now the first exercise that I have is quite a interesting one, right? And you need to use your chat box to give the answers to this exercise. um, in this exercise, first think about your current brand and then define what your renewed brand needs to be like, right? And it's a very simple thing. My question to each one of you, and please use the chat box to give that answer, is as far as work is concerned, as far as office is concerned, share 3 words, okay, that other people would use to describe you and your current personal brand, right? So when they think of you in an office or a work context, what are the 3 kind of words that would come to your mind? So put that down as current brand and write 1, 2, 3, and then share 3 words that you would like also people to associate with you, right? First write all the 3 things together as 1, 2, 3, and then put them down in the chat box. Don't write one word each and just press enter, right? Write all 3 and then kind of press enter, right? So what should your current brand be, and what are the 3 other words that you'd like people to associate with you? I'm giving you 3 to 5 minutes to put these answers down. Your time starts now. Yeah, everyone, just for this to be kind of useful for you, Please be interactive during the session, right? So Saswat Panda, for example, you've written one word, a good leader, while we've asked you for three, right? So even if you can think of one, the whole point of this exercise is to think beyond that. Think of what else people probably think about you or say about you, right? The same thing with Saksham Jain. So you just put one word there, but we're really asking you for three things that you think will come to people's mind when they think about you, right? So Vinay Kulkarni is, of course, put down reliable, supportive, innovative. R. Ganpati is put down disciplined, hardworking person, not flexible. Okay, good. At least he's being honest with himself. Naval Shah has put sincere, dedicated, passionate is something that would come to people's mind. Mithun has said positive, charming, helpful. Pallab Bose has said multitasking, reasonable services, national. I'm not sure what national means. Jagat Singh has said down to earth, more work focused, good leader. Ganesh is added saying passionate, inspirational, true companion. Right now, of course, I don't know whether this is the answer to the first part or the second part, but you all should have communicated the thought that way, right? Saying part one, what is the current brand? These are the three things that come. See, Mohammed Amir has written it so nicely and communicate. This is the way to communicate the thoughts for all of y'all that can see it in the. Mohammed, you need to share it with all panelists and attendees, not just the panelists. So please make that change in your setting and share your thoughts again. That is something which is important. National means pan India. Okay. Yes, so this is a good way in which to have communicated the thoughts like Mohammed Amir has, which is to say part one, or like Shahnaz has currently. Part one, currently what people think of you is dedicated, a thinker and reliable. And part two, what you would like them to think of you going ahead is somebody that's approachable, multitasking, friendly. That's what you would want. Again, to look at the very nice way in which Shahnawaz has communicated his thoughts. And these are things to learn, right? For the rest of you all while communicating your thoughts. Shahnawaz is put down saying current brand revolves around number one, hard work, number two, team player, and number three, decisive. And he wants his future brand to revolve around a good leader, somebody that can say no, and a smart worker. Again, Fancy Goel has put it across nicely, saying current brand is ownership, trustworthy, and hardworking person. And she wants her future brand to be known as somebody that's a good leader, somebody that's confident, somebody that's not short tempered. It's very, very clear what she wants. So I think a better way of putting not short tempered is somebody that's cool, calm, and collected, right? Like a Dhoni of sorts, since we're in Dhoni season right now. Okay, so Ruchir puts down his phase one. He says is somebody that's humble, supportive, and hardworking. That is something that he thinks he is currently, and let's see what he puts as something that he wants in the future. Yes, he says part two, he wants to come across as a great leader, a go-getter, somebody that's successful professionally. Let's look at Pratyush's answers. Yeah, he says number one, professor. Okay, number two, not ruthless, and number three, a team manager. And he wants to move that to being a go-getter, a multitasker, and aggressive. These are the three points that come to his mind. Mithun, where's Mithun's first part? I can't find this first part. Okay, so future brand, Ganpati is put as smart working personality, flexible as per the situation, and well-planned. That's what you want people to think about you. Pallab Bose is put future brand focused, somebody who's at a premium and international brand. I think he's talking more about his company or his practice in some way, right? Some very good answers. Congratulations. This is exactly the kind of participation that we want from all of y'all for it to be useful for you, because otherwise these sessions are going to be useless unless you are involved in it. Yes, Fancy Goal, great leader definition can vary from person to person, but it doesn't really vary. That's because most people don't know what the definition actually is. The definition of a great leader, at least in the context of business, is somebody that can get results through people in the short and long run, right? And even in most spheres, that's what the definition is: your ability to get good results from people. Yeah, okay, that's a good answer again. Saswat Pandey Singh, sir, to be honest, I don't know what it means, so that's okay. I'm talking about my self branding. Okay, great. So these are some of the words that will come to people's mind right now, and of course the three words that would come in the future for somebody. So that's a good kind of starting point for this exercise in terms of what you need to do. Okay, let's look at the last couple of answers. Ganesh V says, part two, I want to be an inspirational and an influential leader and coach and a sales academy consultant. Okay, so now let's go on to the next part of what needs to happen, right? Now, let's look at how to build your personal brand. Okay, and there's a simple kind of way in which you would remember this thing, and you can remember it as bake your pie, right? This is something that you can remember, and especially these words of PEI, because today the model that we have is revolves around PEI, which basically means, okay, ensure that your pie tastes good, ensure that your pie looks good, and ensure that people know about it, right? So these are the three things that you can keep in mind. Ensure that if you're talking about a pie, ensure that your pie tastes good, ensure that it looks good, and ensure that people know about it. And if you concentrate on doing these three things, you will definitely have a very credible and a good personal brand, right? So that is something that will definitely happen if you keep these three things in mind. Okay, now let's look at each what the PI acronym actually stands for, right? The first thing that the P stands for performance, right? The I stands for image, and the E stands for exposure, right? This is what the PI acronym actually stands for: performance, image, and exposure. And if you take care of each one of these three things, your performance, image, and exposure, your brand in a way will take care of itself if you do that, right? Okay, now, before we kind of go on any further in terms of understanding what each one of these things is, this is another important thought to remember in the subject of perception management, right? That people's perception of you have something to do with reality, right? So it's never going to be a situation where people have a certain perception of you which is not connected to reality. Now, a lot of people could argue saying that it could be your old reality. It could be something that you would do a while back, which is gone and affixed in a person's head. But the truth of the matter is, it will always have something to do with the reality at some point of time, right? So just to kind of give you an example of what I'm trying to say, it's more in the personal side, but it's an interesting example nevertheless. So when I was a child, I used to be quite a destructive child, or a naughty child, right? I'd be jumping around from here to there and always be up to some mischief. So my grandfather, my mother's father back then, so he would get very worried around me, right? Because I'd always be breaking something, or as soon as he would enter the house, I would like do a big jump on him, or something like that, right? So I'd always be causing some destruction or the other. But that was probably until I was 6 or 7 years old, right? However, even when I was 15 years old, which was a whole kind of 8 years after that, every time I would go close to my grandfather would still move back a little bit, right? He would still get a little scared of me, because he was so used to that, the first 7 years of my life where I was very destructive or would jump on him all the time. So of course, as I grew up, I stopped being like that. But the image of me being like that was so fixed in his head that even 7 years after that, it was so difficult for him to get that image out, right? So for a lot of y'all, that could be the case in both your personal relationships and your professional kind of equations with people, that you've built based on a certain reality. Now you've given out a certain image to people. People have a certain perception of you. And if that is the case, even if you have managed to change that thing, people will still, in a way, remember you by your past perception. And the only thing that means actually, from your cases, the only thing that means is that you need to work very, very hard in order to change your brand, or in order to change the perception about yourself, right? You can't blame people for it, for not seeing a change in you, right? You need to work doubly hard to ensure that you change your perception, because that has been based on some reality, right? Now, the other thing that tends to happen, before I get into what performance, image, and exposure means, the other thing that tends to happen with a lot of people is they make very small changes in themselves, and they expect the world to take notice of it, right? And then they get grossly disappointed when the world is not taking notice of their very, very small or minuscule changes that they're making in the way they work, behave, etc., right? People are not, unless somebody is really observant, people often don't, are not very, very observant of every small little change that you make. So I think I said this in another session where I said that tomorrow if you lose 1 kg of weight, nobody knows about it. You may know about it if you stand on a weighing scale every day and measure yourself, but if you lose 10 kgs of weight, of course the whole world takes notice of it, right? So if you want to change your perception in front of people, if you want to change your image, that is not going to happen by you just losing 1 kg of weight or making some minor changes in the way you operate and do your stuff, right? It has to be 10 kgs, or it has to be a massive change that you do in something for people's perception to be changed about it, right? Just a third kind of point that I'd like to share here about perceptions being based on reality, right? So in a lot of cases, I have people telling me that, oh, you know, I'm such a friendly person, right? That's what they'll say. I'm actually a very friendly person, but people have a different image about me. And they tend to blame the people for it, for having a different image about them. No, you know, if you are a friendly person and if people have a different image about you, it's definitely something that you've done in the way you behave with people, in the way your, say, body language is, in something you've done, right? There's never going to be a case where people are just perceiving stuff about you which is not connected to some reality that you're displaying to the outside world, because nobody really cares how you are from the inside, right? People can't go inside and kind of check you out and diagnose you from the inside. All that they can do is they can see how you're behaving with them in any form, and based on that behavior that they put out, the perceptions are going to be there, right? So this is the kind of third point that I'd want to share here. So number one, the first thing is, all perception is based on some reality. That reality could have happened a long time back and you could have changed, but in a lot of cases it becomes very difficult to change people's perception once they have a certain perception that they've made about you already. And if that is the situation, you need to work doubly hard towards changing that. And that's true whether it comes in your personal life or your professional life. Number two, like I said, if you are going to make extremely small changes in your life and expect people's perception to change about you, it's not going to happen. 1 kg of change is not good. You can't have 1 kg of change. You'll have to have the 10 kgs of change for really people to take notice of it or change their impression about you or perception about you in some way. And of course, the third point is equally important as well, right? That whatever you do, whatever impression people have of you, is because of some behavior that you're demonstrating on the outside, however much you may think that you're good from the inside, right? So you need to do both things. If you are a certain way on the inside, it has to reflect in the outside world or in your behavior in some way, right? So these are the three things to remember just before we get into performance, image, and exposure, right? So let's look at what the first P is. It's very interesting, right? So if you want to be if you want to have a good personal brand, if you want to have people to have a good perception about you, you have to have a good performance, right? Because without that, none of the other things are going to make sense at all, right? So which means that if you don't have a performance, and if you only have image, right, if you only concentrate on the I part of it, and if you don't concentrate on the P part of it, in the end you're going to fall flat. So the performance needs to be good of what you do. So what is the number one point in the performance? That of course you need to, if you want to have a good personal brand, it always starts with this: you need to deliver great results, right? And if you don't deliver great results for people, none of the other things are going to work for you, right? However hard you try to work on your personal brand, whatever you do, this is the number one thing. And not just do you need to deliver the results, you need to do them consistently, right? You need to do it consistently, and you need to excel at what you're doing, basically, right? So that's the number one way of building your personal brand, or any brand for that matter. You can take the kind of same logic that I have spoken about here in terms of the performance, even when it comes to cricketers, right? Or cricket or each and every one of the cricketers that at least reaches the national level, they have to be very particular about their perception, about their brand, right? Now, none of them are going to be able to get advertisements or become a big brand unless their performance is consistent and they consistently manage to deliver the results. They are not going to be able to become a big brand if that is not the case, right? You will never find even one situation, or very rarely will you find a situation, say in cricket, where somebody has become a big brand whose performance was very, very poor, right? That would absolutely never happen. So number one thing that you need to do if you want to have a good brand, or if you want perception to be right, deliver results consistently, excel at what you do. Right now, this is the second thing that we're talking about. Become an expert in your field by constantly upskilling yourself and gaining knowledge, right? So in the corporate life, in your professional life, being a good brand in the end is being considered an expert at that subject that you're a part of, right? So which means that if you are an architect, you need to be known as a expert at, say, expert as an architect, or expert in a niche that is there, right? What could the niche be? You could be an expert in the field of eco-based buildings, for that matter, right? Green buildings, that could be your area of expertise, and you need to be known as a real expert in that. Or if you're an architect, it could be that you're a landscaping expert, right? Somebody that's an expert at building gardens, at doing that, and you do it better than anybody else. Or you could be considered to be an expert at interior design of hotels, right? So that's where you kind of build your expertise in. But building your brand in the corporate world essentially involves you becoming an expert at something, right? So work extremely hard, and that takes effort every day if you want to become an expert at something, right? It's not something that's going to happen overnight. It's not something that just happens. Nobody just becomes an expert at something. You have to take the effort to constantly upskill yourself, constantly gain the knowledge in that area, right? So bring consistent results, ensure that you're becoming an expert at that thing, right? Now, these are the other things that really make a big difference if you want to have a good personal brand, right? So the third one is always deliver on your promises and stick to your commitments. So this is another thing that plays a big role in it, right? Now, what do we mean by stick to your commitments? It could be as simple as, if you're a salesperson, how do you build your personal brand? Very simple, right? If you commit to your boss saying that I will bring 5 lakh rupees of sales, and you do that consistently, right? That you commit to that number, you know what your target is, you deliver on that number consistently, then people will start trusting you. People will think that you're reliable, because these three words that have been said right at the top comes from doing the performance part well, right? Build your personal brand around being consistent, around being absolutely reliable to people and trustworthy to people, right? And how do you be reliable and trustworthy to people? Mostly that comes from this thing, right? That you will come across as trustworthy and reliable when you stick to your promises. Yeah. So number one thing of sticking to your promises, like I said, could be that you tell your leader or you tell your management that this is the number that I will deliver month on month or year on year, and you do it come what may, right? So you stick to your commitments from that point of view. Number two thing could be just small things, right? That you tell people that you will deliver a certain report by 5 p.m. and you actually go about delivering that report at 5 p.m., right? It's not like you commit 5 p.m. and then that report is not delivered at all. So it could be a small commitment like that. It could be the commitment of an appointment that you give somebody, right? Or a meeting that you schedule with somebody, right? If you give an appointment with somebody, ensure that they are there on time. So you're sticking to your commitment. So over a period of time, when people know you as the person that will stick to their commitments, that is when you will come across as reliable. That is when trust will build in stakeholders around you. And the minute you stop doing this, the minute you don't stick to your commitments or deliver on your promises, you will have no brand. However hard you may try to kind of build an image of certain kind, that's going to be absolutely useless for you, right? So that's not going to happen. Now, the third one is demonstrate ownership of your work, right? Now, what is ownership of your work? Ownership of your work means that this is a good way in which to describe it. Ownership basically means that if your boss or if your customer gives you a certain task, they need to feel that that task will be done on time and will be done excellently, right? That's the impression that if a client or a boss gives you a certain task, I'm repeating this, if they give you a certain task, they, in their head, they need to feel like the headache is off my head. Once I give this person the task will be done excellently and within time, right? And the minute you give your boss or your customer that feeling in the head that it will happen, that is you taking ownership of the task. And of course you need to then deliver on it, right? Your customer will only have that confidence in you if you have a track record of delivering on that message in some way. If you don't have that track record, then they're not going to get that feeling, right? The other element of taking ownership at your work revolves around taking something from start to finish, right? What does that mean? Once a task is given to you, you will put heaven and earth together to take it to its logical conclusion or its logical end. You'll do whatever it takes for that to happen. And then people will actually say that you take ownership of your work. And again, that's very important when it comes to building your credibility, your trustworthiness, your reliability in the eyes of people. And this is what the last thing means, which is again connected to this in some way. Go the extra mile, right? For people, that's something that people really remember. So if you're dealing with your customer, in some way, if you can do anything extra for them, often proactively if you can do something extra for them, or reactively if you can do something for them, that will really build a good positive impression of you in the eyes of your customers or other stakeholders. Now, what does it mean going the extra mile? I'll give you an example, say from a bank, bank branch, right? Let's assume that I am a person that works at a bank, and you are my customer, and you come to my desk, and you ask me for something, and you're a kind of old and established customer of mine, right? So you've been working with the bank for a long time, so I know you. And now you've given me a task which I know is going to take half an hour for me to say take some printouts or go and get somebody's permission, so on and so forth. But however, at that same time, I realized that the customer is looking very busy, right? And the customer seems like he has to actually head to some other direction or do something else. And maybe proactively I tell the customer saying that, sir, you seem like you're in a bit of a hurry. Of course, this task is going to take some time. So what I will do is I will take the printouts of this, because this is going to take some time, and I will ensure that we send our office assistants to your office to deliver this thing later. We don't do that very often because our office assistant is required here. But as an exception, I can do this for you, and I can send it across. Right now, here you realize that the customer hasn't really asked for this thing, but you are proactively going out and telling him that, listen, this is something I want to do for you, right? And the minute you do that, that kind of builds your brand in the mind of the customer. The customer really thinks of you as from a positive light, right? So that's something that happens, which is interesting, right? Does that make sense? So that's going proactively, you're going the extra mile for that customer. Now, reactively could mean that it's going to take half an hour and your customer looks busy and he requests you saying that, listen, I'm really kind of busy, I need to get to this next meeting, can you send it to my office? And it's not part of the regular way in which you do stuff, but you say, so okay, you are a valuable customer, don't worry, I will ensure that I send my office assistant to it later, right? So the minute you go the extra mile for people, automatically your brand is kind of built in their head, because the only thing that people remember is the extra that you do for them. They're never going to remember the regular stuff. The extra is what is remembered, right? So in terms of your pie and your first P, this is what needs to happen, right? Let me recap on it. Number one, deliver results. If you don't deliver results consistently, none of the other things that we're going to talk about are going to make a difference, right, to you. You may think they will make a difference, but none of them will make a difference. Like we said, no big cricketer who's a big brand has never become a big brand unless he's actually performing on the field, right? Sachin Tendulkar was a big brand because he was an amazing performer on the field, right? Not because he was good at perception management. He was very, very, very good at the field, right? Rahul Dravid was a big brand, not because he was good at perception management, because he was amazing on the field. He would consistently deliver results, right? So most of these people that we're talking about, They have to deliver results on the field in some way or the other, right? And do that consistently. Otherwise, everything else is washed out, right? All the other things that you will do will be a waste if you don't do this first thing, right? Number two, ensure that you are an expert in your field, right? So ensure that you're constantly making yourself better. People, if they have a problem connected to a certain issue, they need to think of you, right, as one of the people that they can go to. I don't often like talking about myself or the company because it could seem like we're boasting, right? But we've been in the business to business space for a very long time. If you look at our client list, you know, we work with over 300, 350 of India's biggest multinationals and companies. And with so many, I couldn't say that this happens with every company that we work with, but with so many of these companies, every time they have some kind of training problem or they have some people related issues, one of the first names that will come to their mind is the name of Work Better, right? That's who they'll think of when they want to take any people development initiative. Why? Because over these 10, 12 years that we've been around, we have really built our expertise. We've come across as experts in this field because of our continuous upskilling of what we do to ourselves, right? So that's exactly what we're talking about when it comes to being an expert. Always deliver on your promises and stick to your commitments. If you do not deliver on your promises consistently, again, even if you get great results, but you are not known as somebody that's reliable, that sticks to your commitments, that delivers on your promise, again, that's, you're not going to come across as reliable and trustworthy, and it's not going to work. Demonstrate ownership of your work, which means when your important stakeholders are dealing with you and they give you some task, whether it's a customer, a boss, or a super boss, or somebody else, when they give you a task, in their head, they need to basically think, isko de diya, matlab kaam ho gaya, right? They need to think that if I've given the work to this person, the work is done. This person will put heaven and earth together to ensure that it happens. That's how your brand starts building, right? You will do what it takes to make that happen, and that builds your credibility in the mind of people. And like I said, the last thing, where possible with your important stakeholders, go the extra mile, do something extra for them, because when the minute you start doing something extra for them, that's the only thing they remember. And like we said, the perception that people have about you is in their mind, right? So the minute you do something extra, it creates a positive impression in their mind, and that's exactly what you're looking for. That's exactly what you need to do, right? So this is around the performance part, the P part of it. If you are clear, or at least have understood what I'm trying to say through these 5 points, give me a big yes in the chat box, so that, and make it to all panelists and attendees, right? Give me a big yes, 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 if you understood. Yeah, thank you very much. My audience is very, very kind. Yes. Pratyush, you have asked me a question. I will take up this question at the end of the session, right? Because it's not directly connected to this section that we're talking about. So I will take it at the end. Okay, good. So I think most of us are clear on this topic. Now let's go to the I, which is the image part of the presentation, right? Now, what does this mean? Like we said, bake the pie. So we said, ensure that the pie tastes good, right? And that was the first part of what we discussed, the real performance, the real taste of the pie. Then we said the second part of the pie is make it look good, right? Because if it just tastes good, but it looks ugly, there is a big problem there, right? People won't want to eat it. And if you actually think of most of the kind of 5-star hotels or the great restaurants that we often go to eat at, one of the reason why they can charge so much more money for what they do is their product is good, but often we know, right, that street food is equally good. It tastes really nice as well, right? But the 5-star hotels, the food is good more often than not. There's no doubt about it. But the way they present that food is what gives them the opportunity to charge so much more money for that same food that you'd probably eat somewhere else. But the presentation is so damn beautiful there at the 5-star hotels, and that's what ends up making all the difference in how much you can charge them and how people think about you and your brand, right? So a lot of people in my history of working with them, right, they often have this thing where they say, I'll say it in Hindi and English both. They'll often say, sir, मैं काम बहुत अच्छा करता हूँ, पर मैं वो काम ठीक से present नहीं कर पाता या communicate नहीं कर पाता. तो मैं उनको बोलता हूँ, भाई गलती किसकी है? फिर तुम्हारी गलती है ना, कि तुम काम अच्छा करते हो पर communicate ठीक से नहीं कर पाते या present ठीक से नहीं कर पाते. Just to say the same thing in English, a lot of people tell me that, oh, you know, I do great work, but I can't present or communicate that work well, right? And often the word that they use in India, right, towards the same thing is they say, "मैं बोल बच्चन नहीं करता," and they, in a way, you know, they say this in a way like they have some moral superiority over somebody else that's a good communicator, right? Yeah, look at that person. He just does bol bachchan. He just presents well. Listen, stop looking at that as a negative thing, right? Stop um, talking like you have some moral superiority just because you do good work. The truth of the matter is you do good work, but you haven't taken the effort to learn how to communicate well. You haven't taken the effort to learn how to present well, which is nobody's but your fault. So stop looking at other people that do it well in a derogatory fashion, in a fashion where you make them seem like they are doing something wrong. No, 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 no. Each and every person must do good work and know how to present that work very well. And the good part for all of y'all here is that the entire Work Better Club through the year is designed for you to do good work and of course present that work well, right? And what I mean by that is that, of course, here we're not getting into those many details, but you have close to 25 classes on the subject of communicating well, right? You have 25 classes on that issue, right? And if you learn from those 25 classes and really start practicing what we teach you in each one of those 25 classes, I can assure you that you will start communicating your thought a lot well. You will start presenting your thought a lot well, right? So it's not just about attending these classes, but really taking the matter from these classes and putting it into action, right? So you are at the right place. You've come to the right gym in the way, right? But you have to work out after coming at the right gym. You have to take the instructions seriously. So coming back to what I was saying, that a lot of us complain about saying कि मैं काम अच्छा करता हूँ, I do great work, but I don't present it well. I can't do bol bachchan like those other people. And from today onwards, we need to change that thought. We need to change the our wrong belief set that we have, right? And we need to know that doing great work and the P is very, very important. But the I, image and presenting that work is as important, if not more important than the first one, right? So learn to communicate well, learn to present well, do both these things, right? It's not going to work otherwise. I'll give you another example of this, right? So when you're putting your thoughts across, it's not just it's also about how you structure your thoughts. It is about how you design. Say if you're making a report, it's not just about what you're going to put in that report, but your report needs to look good aesthetically, right? That's something that becomes very important. Now, what do I mean by look good aesthetically? It should have a, say, a great cover page. The spacing between the paragraphs needs to be right. You need to headline the right things. You need to underline the right things. You need to put images in it. Tomorrow, if you're making a presentation, maybe you need to represent certain data in terms of charts, graphs, pie charts, visuals, so on and so forth, right? If we're making these presentations to you, the content of our presentation needs to be good. The way the presentation also needs to look, needs to be, both things need to be good, right? For you to have a good experience as a paying member of the Work Better Club, right? We can't just say that we'll make great content, but what you see visually is not going to be good. No, 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 that's not going to work, right? So again, what this means is that you need to know how to communicate well, but you need to also know how to, say, design your presentations well. You need to know how to design your documents well. If you're writing an email, that email should look good aesthetically, besides you being able to communicate the right thought, right? And if you can't do both these things, then automatically what tends to happen is people are not going to take your work that seriously, and you're not going to build the right brand as compared to somebody else that can do both things, that can do great work and present that work well as well, right? So again, we're not going to get into the details today of each one of these things, because you have, like I said, 24 whole classes on communication, on different aspects of it. A couple of weeks back, or if I'm not mistaken, last week, we had an amazing class on something that could have improved perception management immediately, which was grooming for men is what we had. And we're going to have a section for grooming for women. Now, what was that about? That was about your perception. That was about your image, right? So now, if you took the input from that class seriously, and if you start implementing the input from that class, automatically your grooming standards will go up. And I'll get to what etiquette means and body language and what all those things are, right? So all the input is here for you to get, right? But if you are not going to use that input, it's not going to work very well, right? So learn to present your work well, be a good have good communication, be a good communicator, be a good presenter, and ensure that your communication is designed well, especially when you're talking about PPTs, especially when you're talking about making reports, when you're talking about even writing an email, right? On all these three, ensure that the design is nice. It looks good, the email, right? And in a lot of this PPT and report business, like we said, diagrammatic representations are very, very important. All the knowledge is there. You guys just need to put that in practice, right? Now, the second thing when it comes to building your brand is your body language. That becomes so important in how and what people think about you, right? It becomes so damn important. Okay, now what do I mean by that? If you ask, let me just take different aspects of this body language, right? So if you are going to be someone that is constantly frowning, or as constantly you have a grumpy face, don't be surprised if people are going to have, or people are going to make a negative impression about you. Do not be surprised about it. If your face is constantly grumpy or frowning, then don't say कि मैं अंदर से बहुत friendly हूँ. ठीक है, किसी को, nobody cares about how you are from the inside. If the outside is going to come across as so grumpy and so annoying to be with, right? That's the importance of body language. हर सुबह तुम office, now of course a lot of us are not going to office right now, but every morning, when you go to office in the morning, if your face is going to look like you had a big fight with everyone, and that's how your face is going to be, your subordinates or team members are going to think that you're grumpy every day. Let alone that, if you come home, right? If you come home, and after you come home, if you have children in the house and your face is always grumpy and frowny, and that is the expression on your face all the time, what are your kids going to think? Your kids are going to think that the world is a depressing place, right, to be around. They will start hating office before they even go to office. Why? Because every day that their father or mother used to come from office, they would have faces that were so irritated, angry, upset, frowning. That would be their facial expression. Now, what are the impression people in office or at home are going to get about you? That's what they're going to think about you, right? So when people have these, like I mentioned right at the start, when people have these perceptions about you, they are not just perceptions that have come out of thin air. They are perceptions that have come out of a reality of the situation, right? So just something as simple as your facial expression makes such a big difference. Now, if you are going to go to office, and when you go to office, you're going to start your day with a smile, where you're going to smile at each and every person that you make eye contact to, right? Very naturally, people will think that you are a positive person. Very naturally, people will think that you are a friendly person, a confident person. A lot of those things will come across if you just, if you make eye contact with somebody and if you just smile at them. Something that simple, you will manage to create a great impression about yourself. People will end up having great perceptions about you if you can do something that simple, right? I gave this example in one of the other classes. I'd like to give you all that example too, right? And it's such an important kind of thing. So at one point of time, this was a long time back, when I would be working, right? When I would be working, when I'm working and I'm concentrating on something, I have an impression of making this kind of a face. Just like look at my face, okay? So I make this like when I'm working and I'm focusing on something, I make this very, Hindi mein usko bolte khadus chehra, right? Like this frowny face I make. And that's my kind of work face, because I'm thinking about something and I'm doing that. And then what would happen is each one of, every time my team member would come to talk to me, right? And I would sit, say, in my cabin, and they would come to talk to me. They'd knock on the door and they'd say, Swapnil, and I'd just look at them like that, right? With more or less an angry face. Okay, now I'm not angry actually. I'm concentrating on something. I'm really kind of thinking about something, concentrating, and that's the face that I tend to make when I do that. But when somebody comes to talk to me, I would just look at them with that same face, and my team members would end up saying or thinking that I am always upset. That is the impression that they used to have about me. कि यार ये हमेशा टेंशन में रहता है, ये हमेशा गुस्से में रहता है, ये कभी खुश नहीं रहता, right? That is the, and that wasn't the truth actually how I was feeling inside. It wasn't the truth. It was just when I'm concentrating, I would make that face. And then I think I read this somewhere and I realized that, man, I do this all the time, right? I read it somewhere, and then I just changed a simple habit, right? So every time I'm still kind of concentrating and doing something, I probably still make that face. But when somebody comes to talk to me, if they say Swapnil, I'll just look at them and I'll just change my expression, and I'll start with a smile. I'll say, yeah, tell me, right? And I'll just change that expression quickly. And therefore now my team members think, the perception that they have about me now is that I'm a lot more approachable than probably I used to be earlier, right? So the problem wasn't in them. The problem was with me and my body language towards them, right? So I can't blame other people for it. Now, the other aspects of the body language, of course, are simple things that we've discussed. You should, for those of you all who have not been through our body language class, right? Go to your dashboard, check out the class on body language that I have done, right? Body language and speaking impactfully. Of course, you can wait for the live class. It will come in a while, but if you don't want to wait for the live class to come, you can go and check the self-paced masterclass, which is there, right? And we spoke about simple things that can give people a positive impression about you. What are those things? We said sit or stand straight, right? That's something which is very important. Don't be sloppy. Don't be drooping all the time. Sit or stand straight, walk straight, right? And the minute you do these couple of things, or sitting or standing straight and walk straight, automatically the impression or the image that you give people is a lot kind of better than you would otherwise, right? And some of the other things that we've discussed there is we spoke about saying, when you're sitting on a chair, ensure that your body is taking the shape of the chair, that there shouldn't be any gap between your backside and the chair, right? So ensure that you're doing that when you're sitting. So if you just practice this one thing of sitting straight, standing straight, and having your shoulders not drooping but expansive, not falling on either side when you're sitting, just these simple things of your body language besides your facial expression, where there's a nice quote that says, a person without a smiling face must not open shop, right? So just ensuring that you have a positive facial expression when you're interacting with people, you're sitting and standing straight, not falling on either side when you're doing it. These things are more than enough for you to build a positive kind of image about yourself in office, right? Now, the third part, like we spoke about, is grooming. That has such a big impact, right? That has such a big impact in the way people perceive you. If you are going to take the effort to be sharply dressed in business situations, that will give you a big advantage over other people, right? It will give you a big advantage. Now, I'll share a research with you. There's a very nice book. We're going to do a workshop on that. We're going to do a class on that that is called the 6 Principles of Influence, right? A very exciting class. You must come for that class. It'll teach you how to convince people better, how to persuade people better, right? One of the research that was conducted for that topic was a research where two sets of people, there were a set of actors that were asked to wear very casual kind of clothes, right? And have very casual body language. So on the both body language and the grooming parameter, very, very casual, very relaxed kind of body language and very casual clothes. They were asked to kind of go into a certain area and use one reason. I forgot what the reason was. And they were asked to go to, say, a sample set of 500 people and ask those 500 people for money, right? By using a certain reason. And then they saw how much of money was collected, right? By wearing those casual clothes and having the casual body language. Then in a couple of weeks, those same actors were given really sharp, good formal clothes, right? So they went into wearing like suits and like being dressed really sharply. They went into that same area, used the same excuse that they had, the same reason that they gave, and again approached close to 500 people, asked them for money again, right? After they wore formal clothes and after they had confident body language, good body language, they collected if I'm not 2 to 3 times more money. The reason that they used was the same, the area that they went to was the same, the amount of people that they approached the same, but the amount of money that they collected was 2 to 3 times more, just based on grooming and body language, right? So if you ever think that this topic is not important to your career, it's not important to your perception, you are highly mistaken, right? We've done a class on this already for men. If you've missed that class, go to the self-paced master classes or wait for the live masterclass that will come in much later. But we're giving you this input on how to dress well, how to dress sharply, to turn people's impression about you, right? Because this is the result. 2 to 3 times more money was collected as a result of these two things. So that is the power of dressing well. Very often I tell people simple things, right? That if you go into a meeting, right, and if you're meeting a person for the first time, when you're meeting that person for the first time, if somebody enters a room that has dressed really sharply, that has great body language, and you don't have both, you have ceded the advantage to that person in that meeting. You have given that person the upper hand in that meeting. And if he's dressed really well and has confident body language and you don't, right, you will be on the back foot for most of the meetings. Now if that person just wears good clothes and has good body language and talks nonsense, of course, then nothing is going to work. If a person then doesn't know his stuff or doesn't perform well, a person can't just go to office in good clothes and not perform well, right? Nobody's going to give him a promotion just based on wearing good clothes and having good body language. No, right? I often share this with people. If you want to do well in your career, it's like a pie. Think of it like a pizza. You need to get all your slices right, okay, for you to do well. So there's a performance slice that is there, there is an image slice that is there, there's an exposure. So all these, the more slices you end up filling by doing the right things, automatically your chances of doing well in your career keep going up, right? So if you just have your image and if you don't have the other slices that are there that are required to do well, you're not going to do well in your career. You need to have a multitude of the right skills, knowledge, attitudes, right? A multitude of these things in order to really succeed, not just one thing, right? In order to do well. However, if I had to choose one thing, I tell people the one line, if you want to succeed in your career, the one line is consistently get results. If the result parameter is 100 that has been sent to you, consistently get 125. If you do this over a reasonable amount of time in whatever work you're doing, you are likely to go up and rise in your career, right? That's what's likely to happen if you keep these two things in mind, right? Now, etiquette, the fourth one. Etiquette, very, very important. Again, classes have been done in this in the Work Better Club. That's why this club is so beautiful. We're covering each and every aspect in detail for you. Why is etiquette so important? Etiquette basically in simple words means workplace manners, right? Now, if you don't have manners in your personal or professional life, the problem that happens is people don't want to interact with you. People don't want to deal with you if you don't have manners or etiquette around it, right? People will start avoiding you. How will you build your brand? Do you think you can build your brand well or have the right perception when you don't have manners? That's not going to happen, right? If people want to avoid you, they'll make fun of you then because you don't have good manners, right? They'll want to avoid you because you don't have good manners. They won't want to deal with you if you don't have good manners. Won't want to do lunch with you if you don't have good manners and etiquette, right? And you won't be able to work with people if they want to avoid you, they're embarrassed of you, or you don't behave well, and that's why people don't want to work with you or collaborate with you. My God, right? You cannot build a good brand for yourself if you do not understand corporate etiquette and do not have manners, right? So this is the combination that you need to have. Now, you need to ensure that whatever work, so the image part is you need to know that whatever work you have, okay, ensure that you're presenting and communicating that work well to people, which is you need to be a good presenter, you need to be a good communicator, both verbal and in writing, and you need to focus on it looking good. The design of your communication needs to be good. We are in a world today where design matter more than ever before, right? Because all of us are so used to well designed stuff. The 1+1 phone, for example, is currently one of the highest selling, if not the highest selling smartphone in that category. And if you realize it has such a beautiful design, right? The box looks so beautiful of it. When you open it, the phone looks, so each and every element is so beautifully designed to give us the right impression and perception about it. And of course the phone works well, right? So it's a combination of a good phone priced well, looks good, the box looks good, each and every element of it looks good. And that is when a big brand gets created, right? At the corporate side. So ensure that you focus and use the Work Better Club to learn this. Use the Work Better Club to learn each one of these things, right? Ensure that you're particular about your body language. Like I said, small things from your facial expressions to, the way you sit and stand, that is something that becomes really important. And we spoke a lot here about smiling, have a positive face and straight back. So just keep this in mind at all points of time to give people. You do not want to come across as somebody that is sloppy, right? That's, you will never create a favorable impression for yourself by having a casual body language, a sloppy body language. I'll just say one more thing here, right? If you have a casual body language, people will take you casually, they won't take you seriously. And in the context of work and business, you being taken casually is not going to help you in any way, right? You want people to look at you and consider you to be a serious professional. You want somebody to get an impression of you that you mean business, right? That's the impression that you want to give people, that you mean business, not that you're casual, not that you're careless, not that you're sloppy. And that will be reflected through your body language, right? I share this thing often. I'll share this last story before we go on, right? So when I used to have terrible body language when I first started my career, it used to be not bad, but terrible body language is what I used to have, right? Now, when I used to have that terrible body language, I would sit in a very sloppy way. And I remember once my boss came, my ex-boss came, because I would, sit like I used to sleep on the chair in office, basically. I wouldn't sit on the chair. I would sleep on the chair, right? And do my typing. And then once my boss came and she tapped me on my shoulder, and this is the line that I'll never remember, I'll never forget, right? She said, "It's Swapnil," she said, "if you sit like this and work, no, even if you're doing the most important work, right, the whole world around you," and this used to be a big office, "the whole world around you will think that you're playing solitaire or you're playing some game on your computer with this body language," right? So she said, even if you're launching a rocket in space or doing some very, very important work, the world around you will think you're playing solitaire and doing some rubbish around it, right? And that made so much of sense. And from that day, I could never sit like that if I was in a like formal office setting, right? If you sit slightly in a relaxed way at home or slightly casually at home, it's okay, right? But in an office setting, if you do that, my God, right, you're putting yourself into deep trouble. The point to remember, people want to work in business with people that they can trust, that are reliable, that they think are serious professionals. They do not want to deal with people that are casual. They do not want to deal with people that they're like, यार पता नहीं ये काम करेगा कि नहीं, body language से तो confidence नहीं आ रहा है इसके कि ये काम करेगा कि नहीं, right? So it makes so much of a difference for you to trust a person if their body language is wrong. Now, your grooming, we said grooming is very important to give the right impression. Ensure that you're dressed sharply. We've given you the input that is required, right, to for you to dress very sharply as a man, and we have the thing for the women as well. And of course, have workplace manners or etiquette. If you don't have manners and etiquette, people will want to avoid you. They'll make fun of you. They won't want to deal with you. Cannot build a big brand based on that, right? You go, say for example, you go for a meeting whenever Corona gets over. You go for a meeting and you're having a cup of tea or coffee, and you slurp while doing it, right? You do a big, and you make some weird sound like that while doing it, which is a terrible thing to do, right? Then people will forget all the good kind of thing that you bring to the table. They'll forget all that. You know what they'll remember? They will remember you making loud sounds with your tray while drinking the tea. That is what they'll end up remembering, right? And then you'll say, "अरे पर मैं काम बहुत अच्छा करता हूँ." हाँ, काम तो बहुत अच्छा करते हो, पर कॉफी और चाय पीते समय बहुत आवाज कर लेते हो यार. लोगों को बिल्कुल पसंद नहीं है, right? Corporate etiquette is about you can't be irritating people when you're working, right? So this is the whole image part. If you understood what I'm trying to say, give me a big yes in the chat box, please. Give me a big yes in the chat box. And you can ask me questions. You don't need to kind of fully agree with me, but you need to at least understand the point that we're trying to make. Okay, okay, okay. Very good, very good, very good. I think we have everybody on the same page. No wonder you guys are here at the Work Better Club. We all, our wavelength is the same. That wavelength match, but partial, there are more points. Yes, partially covered. Yes, Pallab, but there are more points. Like we said, each one of those points that we had put down is a whole 90-minute class in itself. Body language, 90-minute class. Etiquette, 90-minute class. So each one of them is already there. It's already there in your self-paced. If you want to check them on the dashboard, or if you want to attend them live, they will be coming up in the year ahead, right? So you're absolutely right where it's partially covered, because here we're giving you a overall impression of what perception management is. More headings, yes, there could be more headings as well, right? We have only 90 minutes here. So yeah, I'm going to answer this question right away. It's a very, very nice question. So Saswat Panda is asked one question: do we always smile in office even when there are serious things that are happening? It's a very, very good question, right? So of course, if you are going to go for a funeral, I don't think the right expression to carry for a funeral is a smile. If you are going to go to visit somebody in the hospital, somebody that has a something serious has happened and you're going to the hospital to talk to kind of meet somebody, I don't think you can go with a big smile right there. If there's a serious thing that has happened, no, you can't. The similar logic needs to be used in office, right? If there is something which is a crisis that is happening, there's something which is an emergency which is happening, the smiling in those situations could give the wrong impressions, exactly like they would in your personal life. However, in my experience, and of course this, it's not my experience, even the kind of science and research around that says the same thing, is that when you a good thing to do is, in most interactions that you have, however serious the discussion may be, in most interactions that you have with people, always start your interactions with a smile and with a greeting, right? Now the rest of your kind of interaction with them could be very, very serious, right? For example, if you're doing an appraisal, if you are a boss and you're appraising somebody and he's done a terrible job through the year, and you need to be very firm with him, be very assertive with him and tell him that he's done a terrible job. So the conversation ahead is not a very fun conversation, it's a very serious conversation. However, ensure that you start the kind of that entire discussion with a smile on your face, where you shake his hand, you give him a greeting, so it doesn't seem that you entered the meeting with a bad mood, right? And that's why you're giving him a bad appraisal, or that's why you're being firm with him. No, that you entered the meeting with the right spirit, right, of smiling, of greeting. There's nothing personal between you and that person. However, the nature of the discussion then can become serious, and it's no problem, right? Nanda asked me, do we have more detailed sessions of presenting? My friend, we've got, like I said, we have around 5 sessions just on presenting well, 5 whole classes on presenting well, besides all the other ones on communication, right? So Nanda, there's lots of stuff in the area of communication, because we know people need this. A smile means a positive face that motivates. Yes, of course, Pallab. It means that's exactly what it means, right? Now, let's go to the E part. We've covered the performance, we've covered the image. Now, let us cover the exposure, right? Which is part of the pie. Now, what is, yes, so create both an offline and online presence for yourself. Make sure people know who you are and what you stand for, right? So once you've done the work, once you present yourself and the work well, ensure that you give yourself exposure, right? Now, what does this exposure mean? Let's talk about offline exposure, right? Take on assignments and projects that will give you good exposure. That's what you need to do, which means within your organization, be bold enough to proactively take up challenging projects. That's what you need to do. Be bold enough to take up challenging projects. Be the one that's raising your hand and saying that I want to take up, because a lot of times these really challenging projects can make you shine, right? In some way, the challenging projects is what will make you shine. The challenging projects is what will keep you in people's memory for a long time. I'm a big fan of cricket. I'm a big fan of Dhoni. So let me give you this example. Challenging time, World Cup final versus Sri Lanka 2011, right? Challenging time. And at that point of time, Dhoni said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and take up this challenge on behalf of my team. I'm going to actually go and do that. And he went into that very challenging situation without getting scared, although it was a critical kind of thing for all of us. And he ensured that he took the country through and took the team through and won the World Cup. And people for the next 10-15 years, exactly like people still remember Kapil Dev for that thing, for the next 20 years, even after he's retired, people will still remember that match, people will still remember that shot, because it was a challenging time. He raised his hand and he said, I'm going to be there and I'm going to do that, right? So in your company, if you are scared to take up challenging projects, assignments, it could be a customer. To give you an example, that's a very tough customer to deal with, right? Nobody wants to deal with that customer because he's such a painful customer to deal with. And maybe you say, you know what, I'm going to take up the kind of challenge of dealing with this customer. And then you deal with that customer, and then you, in a way, delight the customer, right? You delight the customer while dealing with him. Now you've created a big brand for yourself within the organization, where people know that you're the person to go to for tough things to be taken care of. And that's exactly the kind of brand that you want to create, right? That when the situation is tough, I can do this stuff, right? When the situation is challenging, when the project is tough, this is the person to go to. And that's the kind of brand that you want to create, right? So ensure that you take up challenging work that is likely to give you good exposure, likely to connect you to the right people within your organization, right? So ensure that you all are doing that. A lot of cases, if you all have freelancers or entrepreneurs, right? If you all have freelancers or entrepreneurs, it depends on taking up a challenging client, for example, right? Who, if you do great work for this challenging client, maybe it'll give you a lot of exposure. It'll open up a lot of doors for you, right? And even in some cases, the margins around those clients could be very, very small, right? But doing work for that client will give you the exposure required, even though the margins in that case could be small. But that's exactly the kind of stuff that we're talking about, right? So whether you're working in a corporate startup or whether you're a freelancer or entrepreneur, the logic of taking up challenging assignments that give you good exposure remain the same, right? Now, ensure that you do this. Take up speaking and presenting opportunities wherever possible, right? Because that again creates an impression of you being a leader in some way, right? Now, why does this thing become so important in the context of your business? If you want to go up the corporate hierarchy, right? If you want to be here in the corporate hierarchy and top and be making the most amount of money, right? If you have to do this, you need to have the ability to be a good leader, right? What does leader mean? You need to have the ability to get results through people for your company, right? You need to have that. Now, to be a good leader, you need to have a certain amount of confidence, right? I had actually written an article, which is part of a whole kind of magazine, did a cover story on that, which is called the 7 C's of leadership. You can type it on the internet and you can read about this article, which is called the 7 C's of leadership. And one of the C's is, of course, the confidence which a leader needs to have, right? Now, this becomes very important. Now, another aspect which is very important when you speak or present is confidence, right? So very often, if you don't have confidence in yourself, it becomes very difficult for you to become a leader. It becomes, if you don't become a leader, you can't get to these levels of management, right? So it's all that kind of interconnected with each other. Therefore, of course, use this particular platform to better your ability to speak, to present, to do all those things, better your ability there and take up these opportunities so that you get visibility, right? This is when you start getting, if you avoid doing this thing, you're not going to get visibility, right? Now, the third point, again, important, ask one question at every meeting that you attend. Now, of course, this doesn't mean that you ask a question for the sake of asking a question. It doesn't mean that you just यहाँ पे लिखा है इसलिए आप सवाल पूछ रहे हो. No, you don't want to come across as stupid, right? However, what I have seen in a lot of cases, and this my business partner, who's also my wife, you know, she would go for a lot of these networking, go for a lot of these conferences, and she would say how it would make such a big difference, because when the speakers were done talking, and she genuinely had questions. She wouldn't just make it up. She genuinely have questions. And I believe if there were 50 other people in the audience, they would have questions too, but they would not be the ones raising their hands to ask the question. They would only be probably 3 or 4 people that would, out of those 50 people, raise their hands and ask questions. She would always be the first one to go, right? The first one, when Q&A would happen, she would raise her hand because she wanted to ask a question. She didn't want to keep it to herself. And she ended up then discovering that because she asked a question, and a good question, later on the speakers at that particular event wanted to interact with her, right? Because they would remember her from the question asked, and they were like, okay, you know what, this is a smart woman, I want to kind of interact with this woman on business. And that would invariably end up happening because she would be the first one to raise her hand and ask a question, right? So this is not just theory, we've actually experienced this thing firsthand, and it makes such a big difference. Right now, number 2, don't shy away from giving your input, right? If you're in a meeting, which means, now I'll give you another example. If you're in a meeting and the say your boss or your super boss asks you a question saying, what do you think of, what is your opinion on this? Don't keep your mouth shut, right? Then what happens is, the guy amongst that group who's the slightly smarter guy, the better communicator, he will share his opinion on it. You probably had the same opinion in your head, but you kept quiet about it. Then your boss comes and asks you saying, what do you think? And then you say, same, whatever he said, same. So your brand within the company is the person that says same, right? Whatever others say, you point toward them and say, yeah, my opinion is the same. Or you stupidly repeat the same thing that he said in different words, because now you want to say something, but he's already said it. He's already said what he had to say, right? So again, in meetings, if a question is asked, if you're going to shy away from giving your input, or even otherwise, if you're going to shy away from giving your input, how is your brand going to build within the organization? There is no way it's going to build, right? So take up speaking opportunities, ensure that you ask questions at meetings, good valid questions, right? If you don't have a question at all, you don't need to ask a question, right? When you are asked a question, don't shy away from giving an answer. Or even if you have some valuable input, do not keep quiet. People want, it's impossible for another person to kind of know and dream of what's happening in your mind, right? It's not possible for them to do that. You need to open your damn mouth for them to know what's happening, right? And this is what you need to do through the speaking opportunities, through point number 3 as well, right? Now, number 4, build relationships with people beyond your immediate team, right? Because a lot of us get so comfortable in our immediate team, in our immediate surrounding, that we don't take the effort of building, of interacting with people across departments, of building relationships with people across departments, right? That's something that you need to do, right? If you want to build your brand. Otherwise, people are not going to know you across the organization, and that's not going to help, right? And the last point of offline exposure is attend interesting conferences, events in your sphere of work, right? Again, people don't do this. If you want to build your brand, ensure that you take the effort to go for a lot of these conferences, event in your space of work. You know, again, interact with people there, get to know the latest. The other thing that happens when you attend these interesting conferences and events in your sphere of work, you get exposed to a very, very good learning material. And that helps in the point that we discussed earlier, which is about becoming an expert at your work, right? Becoming an expert at what you're doing, building your competence there, right? So it not just helps you in meeting interesting people, it not just helps you in exposing yourself to different things and giving yourself exposure, but also the expert that is required, right? Pallab quickly asked the question here, what about brand building in the market for self-employed professionals and freelancers? Pallab, I can assure you that a lot of what we've discussed here will also apply to your career as a freelancer. Of course, you're going to, as an entrepreneur or a freelancer, you're going to have to do a lot more in terms of possibly building a website. You're going to have to be a lot more active on social media. You'll have to do those things a lot more than somebody that works in a corporate setting. So I would say that would be the biggest difference between somebody that's working in a corporate setup and somebody that's a freelancer. It will be your online presence that you will have to improve a lot more. Otherwise, most of the points that we discussed would more or less remain the same. Right now, in terms of online presence for professionals, I think that LinkedIn is the main kind of forum that you need to focus on. Again, we have a whole session that's going to happen on how to use LinkedIn well. So this is not, we have a whole 90-minute, if not more, session on that, which is coming up in the year ahead, right? It's not happened yet. So it's not there on your self-paced, it's not a self-paced masterclass yet. It's not there on your dashboard. So wait for that for a detailed input if you want. But these are a few things that you can do that are often commonly made mistakes, right? Your picture is the first thing that people will see. So ensure that on LinkedIn, you have a professional image that you're choosing, right? That's something which is important. Define your brand and what you stand for in your profile description, right? So what you write in your profile description becomes very important. Even if you don't want to wait for the class that we are going to conduct on LinkedIn, you may want to go and search the internet today for what are the best practices as far as these profile descriptions are concerned, right? I think this is fairly simple. Now, again, for you to build your brand online, update your profile whenever you make a career move, speak at a conference, publish a new article, take a new course, etc. Right? So at least on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn has become like your online resume that people will check. Again, whether you're in a corporate space or whether you're a freelancer, right? This is something that people will check all the time. So you want to keep it updated on your career moves, each one of these things. You don't want to just keep it incomplete or empty. If you should also you should write and publish articles in your sphere of work if possible, right? If any input or anything that you give there could really help. Have others share recommendations. So Fancy, you had a question there, but yes, it is important, right? Endorsements and recommendations on your profile is something that can really build up your profile. So if you can get people to do that, I would really suggest that you do that. I have a lot of people making that request of me more often than not, people that have worked with me, and it does really help. You should do it for sure. Now, this depends on whether you have the time or not, which is actively participate in groups that are relevant to you, right? And again, in your sphere of work, if you can join those groups, that is there. And at least this is the thing that you can do, right? This last point is the least that you can do. Actively share content such as blog posts connected to your work, basically, right? So if, again, I'm giving the example, if you're a lawyer who's working in arbitrations, right? If you share interesting stuff that you find, you don't even need to create it. If you just share interesting stuff that you find on the subject of arbitration as a lawyer, so that is something that will really help, right? If you consistently share that thing, so it will show that you are interested to do it, right? Pallab asked the question, will the normal free LinkedIn profile do? Of course it will do, unless you really need to go out and network with people, right? It's very clear what each one of the things do for you at or at LinkedIn. But everything that has been mentioned here, at least, is everything that you can do with your free profile, right? You don't need to go in for the premium profile for this. Now, if in turn you need to connect with people, you need to use LinkedIn for sales, you need to use it for other things, of course, you can look at getting the premium account and the other accounts that are there, which you can read on. But these things that have been mentioned here, all of them, these are the basics of what you do on your free account, right? Immediately the things, these are a lot of these things is what you can start doing immediately. If I were you, if I have not updated my LinkedIn profile, the one big step that I would take after this workshop is just something as simple as going and doing that, right? And that will start helping you in your professional life, right? So this is LinkedIn. Now this is about other social media. This is something that you should do. When you Google yourself, what comes up, right? So do a quick check on what comes up. If nothing comes up, you don't have an online presence at all, right? If you do get searches, what are they, right? What is popping up, and why is that important? Is important for point number 3, right? 70% of employers use Google to check you out, while 70% review your social media profiles as part of the hiring process, right? 43% of employees use social media to check on their current employees as well, right? So whether somebody is trying to recruit you or your existing HR, at least globally, people are really looking at what your online presence is. And if you don't have anything, at least it's okay, but you don't want it to be negative for sure, right? You don't want it to be something which doesn't reflect well. And therefore, while LinkedIn is very, very important to your professional side, you must also be aware of what you're putting on other social media channels, right? Because a lot of recruiters today are checking it, and you don't want to come across as a volatile character, right, on social media, as somebody that is, you know what volatile means, right? Or somebody, God knows when this person will blow up or burst, right? You're that kind of a character, or that you're constantly spreading, in a way, hate on something like social media, or constantly doing useless things on social media. So just be careful about that, because people, whether you're a freelancer, people will check you out on social media. Whether you want to get a job, people are going to check you out on social media. Whether you have a job already, people are going to check you out on social media, right? So I think it's time for us to become very careful. Update your LinkedIn, but also be very careful about the other social media that you use. And of course, ensure that everything you post or share online is everything that you share or post is in line with the brand that you want to cultivate for yourself, right? So that's the thing that you need to keep in mind. Okay, good. So the time is almost up. Thank you very much for this great session. Now let's go back to this thing, and let's see what you're going to implement and what your takeaways are from this session. Right? So now go back, think back to the 3 words that you noted to describe your new brand that you want to cultivate for yourself. And basis what you've learned today, share any, I would say, 3 to 5 action points that you're going to implement starting today, right? 3 to 5 things that you've learned here in terms of perception management, in terms of your brand. Please share your input on the chat box. Let's have a quick discussion on it before we end this session and go to the after class to answer your questions. Right? So I'm giving you 2 to 3 minutes to put down your points, the 3 to 5 points that you're going to start implementing in this session, from this session. Okay, Harpreet says that the body language, grooming, and consistency is what she's going to work on. Mohammed Amir says, I will smile more. I will ensure that I take up more challenging work. I will take care of my body language. Very good. Pallab says, I social media presence and image makeover, work towards being an expert, go the extra mile for clients proactively. Wonderful, Pallab, wonderful. And again, a request for all of y'all, a lot of the topics that we spoke about, the detailed classes of them are already there on the dashboard, so you can go and find them. Something like LinkedIn is coming up, so that you won't have on the dashboard currently. Okay, R Ganpati says, I'm going to work on presenting well, planning and involving in more projects, more challenging stuff, and control on emotions. Okay, very good. Shanawaz, my friend, okay, be consistent with my results. I think that's always the most important thing, right? Be consistent and deliver those results that are there. Speak up during meetings and chip up with ideas, right? Chip in with ideas. And don't worry, Shanawaz, and everyone that much about, oh, am I communicating my thoughts perfectly during these meetings, right? Don't worry about that. Start communicating your thoughts in a way. With practice, it will get better. Pratyush says, will present my work well, work on my body language, attend interesting conferences, and take proactive projects that will give me exposure. Three words. Saswat is saying, I want to be a learner. I will present first and communicate voluntarily. I will try to be well behaved and organized. Fancy Goel, very nice, says, work on image, smile a lot more while interacting with people, stick to commitments that I give people, ensure that I have recommendations on LinkedIn. Ganesh says, commitment and consistency towards my set goals, personality development, right use of social media. Um, yes, Kushagra says, I want to give and I want to get better results, smile more, change my body language, will work hard, harder and accept challenges and communicating, right? Communicating. Mithun says, I love the idea of LinkedIn and social media. I will work on my presentation, will work on more buzz. Okay. Guys, I give you a big round of applause. Thank you very much. I think there's some great takeaways for all of y'all from today's session, right? Divya from the Work Better team, can you please share the quick assessment, the only 5-question assessment that we have? We are going to, okay, there she is. Arunima has sent the link to you. It's there on the chat box for you to take a quick assessment on this subject so that you get your certificate for it. And yes, the other thing that we're going to do is I am going to release the quick poll on this subject to get your feedback on how you like this subject. So finish your assessment, get your certificate, give the feedback for this session, and then let's go to after class, right? Let's go and answer all your questions that are there. Come on, there are only 14 people that have given their feedback. Let's have more people. Everyone, please give your feedback and please take the assessment before we go to the after class. Okay, everyone, please give your feedback, my friends, so that we can go to the after class. And everyone, thank you very much for being here on this morning. It was such a pleasure. This is such an important topic, and I was hoping that we have lots of people attending it. I know it's Ganesh Chaturthi season and stuff like that, but it's just so, I'm so happy to have most of y'all here, right? Attending this session and gaining the knowledge that is so required, because all of us know that perception management and building a brand for yourself has become so important in the modern world, right? And getting that input, even a few ideas that you can kind of start using is so incredibly valuable today, right? Okay, I'm going to give you all 30 seconds more to answer the poll.